So, as you all know, OPEC Plus, led by Saudi Arabia, has decided to significantly cut production of oil. That means that prices are going to go up for you at the gas pump. That means that Russia is going to continue to get more oil revenue. It also is great for the Saudis in terms of jacking up prices and what they are able to extract. Also very bad for Joe Biden and the Democrats in terms of the midterm elections. Well, we have joining us now one of the lawmakers, Representative Ro Khanna, who has really been leading the charge in how we should respond to the Saudis. And it's great to see you, Congressman.
Great to be back on.
Yeah, absolutely. So you penned an op-ed with Senator Richard Blumenthal. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. We have it here. You say the best way to respond to Saudi Arabia's embrace of Putin, and let me read the lead paragraph and then you can elaborate. You say this week, Saudi Arabia colluded with Russia, deciding to cut 2 million barrels a day of oil production at the OPEC Plus meeting, thus raising the price of gas to Russia's advantage. The shocking move will worsen global inflation, undermine successful efforts in the U.S. to bring down the price of gas, and help fuel Putin's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. So what, Congressman, do you think that we should do in response to this?
Well, let's just go over some facts. I've criticized big oil, but Saudi Arabia makes big oil look like saints. They are making 70% profit margins on their barrel of oils. They made $100 billion in 2022. You know who's not making money is Putin, because he's selling it at a $35 discount to China and India and other countries. So he pressured the Saudis to keep these prices artificially high. Now, we have done so much for Saudi. We give them 70% of their weapons. We have more defense initiatives. We need to stop all of that. It's not complicated. We need to stop all of that. We have tremendous leverage.
So the president was asked about your legislation. He says that he's going to be reevaluating the Saudi relationship. John Kirby reiterated that. What confidence do you have here that the president, the administration, are they taking a listen to your legislation? Like we saw Senator and covered here, Senator Bob Menendez. Is institutional Washington paying attention to this?
They are. I mean, Senator Menendez coming out was a big deal. But look, there are a lot of powerful interests at stake here. I mean, there are a lot of defense contractors that have business in the with the Saudis. There's been 40 years of relationships. There's a lot of lobbyists that the Saudis have. So it's not an easy road. When we passed the War Powers Resolution after Khashoggi, that was difficult. But this time, I think the ingratitude really has struck lawmakers. Democrats obviously being vocal about it, but even behind the scenes Republicans saying this is unacceptable. They may not say anything till after the midterms, though.
Can you explain for people why it would be so significant if we completely halted arms sales to Saudi?
Well, first of all, they couldn't fly their planes without U.S. technicians. I mean, that's just factual. They have U.S. technicians to fly their Air Force. So it would ground the Saudi Air Force to a halt. Second, they say, well, we'll look at China or Russia. They can't. It would take 5-10 years for them to actually get those arms. So they would not have a military response, and that they will blink. I mean, we have never threatened to stop the technicians, to stop the arms sales. And between 2017 and 2020, look at it. We have more defense agreements, defense initiatives with the Saudis than probably almost any other ally. And a lot of it's being produced, creating jobs in Saudi Arabia, not here.
Yeah, I mean, the president of the UAE, even after this, Congressman, still went to go meet with Putin, what I find extraordinary. So
it was like literally the next day,
The next day, he was like, I'm still going. He's like, I'm going to go meet with Putin. I mean, the Gulf clearly doesn't take this threat seriously, or at least not yet. With this legislation, how quickly do you think that they would respond? Would they pay attention? Is Riyadh, in effect, taking this legislation and this initiative seriously, this conversation?
They are. And MBS, who's the leader of UAE, has a rivalry with MBZ of the Saudis. So they're competing for Putin's attention, which should send a message to the United States that we need to be more serious here. They would take it very, very seriously if the president just takes some action. If he doesn't want to suspend all the arms sales, at least pause the Patriot missile sales that are impending. Make sure that you're not going to send technicians. But there has to be a consequence. And the consequence can't just be we're going to stop the talks or we're going to do something diplomatically. There needs to be real teeth.
They obviously don't care about that. I mean, have you had an engagement with the president or anybody right around him about your initiative here?
I have. I mean, candidly, I've spoken to Jake Sullivan. I've spoken to others. Senator Blumenthal has. They've assured us that they will do something significant. They don't need Congress. I mean, Congress can compel them to do it. They have the power to do it themselves. And what I've said is that the new generation in Congress, we don't have this 40-year history with the Saudis. We see the Saudis as being responsible for the brutal war in Yemen, the biggest humanitarian crisis before Ukraine. And we see them fleecing the American public at the pump. And there's outrage. And so if the Saudis care about their long-term relationship on the Hill, they need to reverse the decision.
Well, it's interesting you point to that because, I mean, there has been for decades, this sort of like bipartisan, unified approach to the Saudis, giving them basically whatever they want and having this sort of, back and forth deal. And it seems to me part of what has snapped and broken here is the sense that the Saudis have picked partisan sides, that they prefer Donald Trump and they prefer the Republicans, and they're happy to jack up gas prices right before the midterm elections. And so it seems to me like part of the, really quite unprecedented response from Democrats here, including specifically Senator Menendez, is this sense that the Saudis have decided to be partisan actors and effectively interfere in our elections.
Chris, I agree with you. I think the partisanship, the timing of it has upset people like Senator Menendez, and also the alliance with Putin. That is quite unprecedented. I mean, the Saudis were our allies precisely during the Cold War because they were seen against Russia. They helped us with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. And now it's coming full circle that they're actually supporting Putin. So they are really miscalculating here, but we need decisive action. I think the president needs to have a primetime speech, and he needs to say, you know why you're paying more than $4 at the pump, $6.50 in my district, but $4? Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's a big deal, and it's a big deal for November. One of the reasons is big oil that is making all these profits, and the other reason is the Saudis. And here's what we're going to do with the Saudis and lay it out. But it can't just be considering in press conferences. There needs to be decisive action.
How do we put this in the context of the president's trip? What were your thoughts on the president's trip there to Saudi Arabia? Like, was it the right move? I mean, clearly it didn't work. So why should they take it seriously? They're like, look, at the end of the day, he came here. He's like, we could spit in his face. I mean, at this point, why should they take Biden's threat seriously when he said he was going to make Saudi the pariah of the world and still bent the knee to MBS in a way by going over there and shaking his hand, or giving it a fist bump.
The fist bump.
Yeah.
Saagar, I mean, look, Senator Sanders and I opposed the trip at the time.
Yeah.
Now, Monday morning quarterback is either, I'm not saying that, we were right and the administration made a miscalculation. We didn't think that it was worth legitimizing MBS given what was going on in Yemen. They thought they were going to be able to convince them for increased production and other considerations, and that obviously did not work out. Mm-hmm. So this was a slap on the president's face. I don't blame them. I mean, I disagreed with the strategy. I don't blame them for doing that. They had their strategy. But now that it didn't work, they need to take decisive action, or it would look like you can push around the United States.
Another thing that's floated that, frankly, I don't totally understand the mechanics of is this, it's called the NOPEC bill, which would be the idea that we basically lift the protections that OPEC, which is a cartel, has had to block them from being subjected to any sort of antitrust legislation. What do you make of that approach? Can you help me understand the mechanics of exactly how that would work? And do you think that that would be a significant reaction to what the Saudis have done here?
Yes, not enough, but we should do it. Let me explain it simply, if I can.
Yeah.
You know how big oil is making $20, $30 billion of profits, Exxon, Chevron. Well, the Saudis are making a lot more. They're making $100 billion. And what OPEC would say is Aramco and the Saudi oil producing are a monopoly. They shouldn't be allowed to make 70% profit margins. And you could sue them in U.S. federal court for their antitrust violations, for these excessive profits. Right now, you can't sue them for the antitrust prices because they have immunity by our law. It would take away that immunity. So it's a long-term necessary solution. It's not going to do anything for the price at the pump tomorrow or in the next few months. The only thing that can do anything is for them to reverse their decision or reconsider their decision. I reached out to Rima, the Saudi ambassador. I've known her. She's much better than MBS. I mean, I've often said put her in charge of the country.
Damning with faint praise there.
Yeah, no, I mean, she's actually more more reasonable. Now, she reports to MBS, and that's the problem. But she needs to get the temperature on the Hill. There's a disconnect. They're used to what the relationship was under Trump, perhaps, and 40 years ago. They don't get it now.
Yeah. So how much support do you have right now for your bill to halt arms sales altogether? Are there any, I know you said Republicans behind the scenes will say, yeah, we're kind of support you, but do you think that you would have any bipartisan support?
We will, but not before the election, candidly. Yeah. I mean, we have Democratic support before the election. I think the Republicans, they're not going to do anything to help out, is how they see it. But behind the scenes, they will support. And I actually think that the Blumenthal bill and my bill has a good chance of passing some version of it.
Well, I would hope to see that. And just finally, you alluded to this in your district, $6.50 a gallon. How much do you hear about this from your constituents, like in terms of the pain?
A lot. I mean, look, prices are up. The inflation report wasn't great today. We have to be realistic. This is what's on people's minds, first top of mind, and we have to have a real plan, and it starts with going after the Saudis and OPEC.
Well, I've been waiting a long time to see somebody introduce legislation like this, so I just want to say I appreciate it, and we thank you for joining us, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys in Chicago, and enjoy Counterpoints.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.